I'll call the Craig Island Township Board meeting for December 8th, 2021 to order. First, pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we'll need a vote. I'm not going to vote. I wasn't there. Approval for the meeting minutes from November 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November.
This is Dick, I'll second it.
Any questions?
Nope.
Meetings,
All in favor?
yeah, all in favor.
Aye.
Motion carries. Treasurer's report.
Okay, I'll review the November financial statement. We had a beginning balance in checking of $43,240, expenses of $21,448, and revenue of $2,863 for an ending balance of $24,835. It looks a little low, but we'll be getting a levy electronic deposit this month. And then our funds went down slightly from last month, totaling $500,482. Expenses in November were higher due to the patching that we paid that out, $17,000. A year ago, we sent back some CARES Act funds, but we were definitely up this year. And then revenue was down because the tax levy disbursement actually arrived in November in 2020, and it'll be December this year. So now that we're getting towards the end of the year, looking at our fund balances, slightly over on general purpose and public safety, slightly overspent, and we're just under road and bridge as of right now. So currently we've overspent the budget by $6,400, which isn't alarming. Any questions? All of our filings are already done for tax levy and everything, so nothing out of the ordinary.
I don't have any questions.
That road and bridge, the current number, that include the crack sealing we did on Geneva then?
It includes the patching 17K. That next one I think is
4,000.
that's got to hit yet.
Okay, all right.
Yep. If you approve it.
Stiff 'em.
So we'll need a motion to approve the November 2021 financial statement.
This is Dick, I make a motion to approve the financial statement.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries. Let's pay the bills.
This is Dick, I make a motion to pay bills 159 through 170 for a total of $7,068.73.
I second that motion to pay the bills for $7,068.73.
Motion's been made and seconded to pay the bills. Any questions on these?
Nope.
I don't have any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Reports from committees and events. We all got a copy of the planning commission report. Anybody here? No planning commission? Okay.
Just me and Cheryl.
You-
Oh, we were all there.
We were all there, yeah. And you got the report from
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. Next planning commission meeting is Monday, January 10th at 6:30 PM. Next town board meeting, Wednesday, January 12th at 7 PM. Unfinished business, well monitoring. Dick, you're up.
Oh, I had a question. Would you guys be interested in meeting at 6:30 or is that too early? I'm just thinking move us ahead a half hour every night.
Are you trying to buy yourself an extra half hour? Get another
Yeah,
half hour earlier?
yeah, people.
Yeah,
people
that's
been
not
listening
30 more
longer.
minutes of you talking.
Yeah, I gotta be bed at 9, so if I start earlier,
I'm not, it doesn't matter to me.
It doesn't much matter to me either.
I mean, just moves it ahead for everybody a
One
little
thing
bit.
that it does allow us to have, hearings prior to the meeting.
If we have it at 7, you mean?
Yeah,
Well, you wanna leave it at 7 then?
I would prefer to leave it at.
Okay, all right,
Gives me time to have dinner.
okay. Well monitoring, Paul, went around with Casey, and they, ever since I've been doing it, well, just this summer, they all stay within a foot all the time. They don't change any.
That's good.
They did from when they started in way back 20 years ago, but the last 10 years, they've stayed right. Tom sent me out some numbers. I was gonna look at it and see if it correlates to the river level, if they're all at the same level of the river, but I haven't done that, so.
So we didn't have any serious drops with our drought?
No, me and Casey thought maybe we would, but no, didn't change a bit, which was surprising.
No.
And even over a period of time, the only ones that really changed were this one that's right out here.
That one right there.
Yeah, the other ones have stayed about the same.
Is that a higher elevation well?
The top of it would be, I don't know about the water level in the bottom, that's the part I didn't quite get to after
Yeah,
Tom sent me the
okay.
actual elevations, so.
Okay. Thanks, Dick. Police contract for 2023 survey. What's this?
I can talk about that if you want. I'd like us to look at this police contract and roads kind of all tie together, because I go back and forth here a little between roads and police. Because basically, our township does not have enough income coming in to support both. Okay, if we look at that road expenditure thing, which we'll talk about later, according to the county, we should be putting about 50,000 a year away for roads. Okay, and that would be escalated every year by about 2% to get to where they show we would be. Well, we can't afford that. We just don't have the money. Last year, I made a proposal at the annual meeting to throw 30,000 in the roads. That wouldn't fly, so the residents didn't want to do that. Okay, police contracts currently costing us just under 100,000 a year. Might as well say 100 grand a year. Okay, we can get the county to do it for free. Okay, where's it gonna go? Okay, so that'd free up that 100 grand a year to throw toward roads. All right. Now, do the people want to do that or don't they? I mean, we really can't have both. And for this police contract, every year it gets kicked down the road another month, and pretty soon it's too late in the year to change it. Because the sheriff wants to know, fairly soon in 23 or 22, what we're gonna do?
By the end of March.
Yeah, by the end of March. So we don't have to make a decision tonight.
By the end of March for 2023.
Yeah, yeah. So really, we should make a decision in February, so we don't get behind the 8 ball, and he says, oh geez, you're 3 weeks too late again. You know, we were talking about waiting until the annual meeting in March, but let me give you a little history. I don't know if you were at the meetings or not. We used to have our own policemen down here, and our own squad car. And we really didn't have a full.
That was the evidence from.
Yeah, and we really didn't have, just a part-time cop, so many hours a week, and drove around, and, well, finally it became where that wasn't cost-effective anymore. It didn't, for what it was costing us to have that officer, have the car, it was actually, I think, cheaper to go to St. Paul Park, or about the same cost. And you had 24-hour day coverage. We kind of had 24-hour day coverage anyway, because with mutual aid with our part-time officer, he worked with St. Paul Park, and it gave us full-time thing. Well, at the time, everybody thought the end of the road was gonna come, or let's put it this way, some of the people did. We're gonna lose our policemen, everything's gonna go down the tubes, we're in bad shape. Well, if we use the sheriff, that's our other option, instead of St. Paul Park, I've heard the same thing. Well, they drive around, I wanna see them patrol, I wanna do this, I wanna do that. But yet, when you ask for money for roads, they don't wanna, they don't wanna pony up and throw money at roads. Well, there ain't enough money there for both. So the decision has to be made by the board, and people can give input back to it as, what are we gonna do? I mean, you could let the roads, I mean, you could kick that can down the road for another 10 years, that's kind of what's been happening. I mean, really, Scott, at the end of the year, each year, what do we come up with extra for roads? After our normal plowing, patching, miscellaneous junk, about 10,000 a year we gain?
It changes every year. Sometimes we're below, sometimes we're over.
Yeah, but on an average, 10 grand a year, extra?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gaining 10 grand a year. Well, our half of Great Cloud Trail was 170 grand. So it'd take you 17 years just to pay for that. Kind of give you an idea where you're at.
Well, then that was a 9-ton road.
Well, when the county come along, they didn't differentiate between 9 and 8 or 7 or 6.
Well, it was the base and
Yeah,
the compaction.
but basically, any of our other roads are gonna have the same cost depending what you do to them.
Well-
But the point being, there ain't enough money there for both. So we don't have to make that decision tonight, but think about it, because I think we better make it in February, or you keep the police for another year and pay another $100,000.
Do we want to talk about some of the research, I guess, with like the other townships all use the sheriff, and we're actually one of the only
Yeah,
townships?
that was good
That was kinda
research.
opening.
That was-
Sure, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Well, Cheryl
information.
did- Cheryl did the research.
Yeah,
I think all the other townships in the county use the sheriff's department,
Yeah, we're the only one that doesn't.
yeah.
And all the other townships were happy with the service that they get from the sheriff's department. A couple of cities had some complaints about it,
Was
but not
that-
the
was
townships.
that Grant,
Well, Grant's a township.
Landfall,
landfall?
And so, like, one of the things for me, I guess, that, that $100,000, to me, if we try the sheriff in a year or something, we're not happy, we can go right back the other route, but it gives us time to throw a lot of money into some road funds, build up that fund, and then have the option to go either way. Fire doesn't change, medic doesn't change.
No.
It's just simply the patrol of the,
So is the intent then, this term survey, is the intent to send out a survey to the residents?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about if we want to, and we can send out a survey, but here's what's probably gonna happen. It's gonna come back 50-50. We've kind of talked about it in other meetings. Some of the residents said, I like seeing a police car drive by here once or twice a day. Some of the other ones had no opinion. I
Well,
mean,
there's some that have really, really firm opinions.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
So,
is that a posted thing we could do for the February meeting or something, just to add, so people just know that it's gonna be discussed there and, or not, or,
we could.
How do we
That's
want
up to our clerk.
I don't know.
we
I
could
mean,
do
I'd like as
that.
much feedback as we can have, but yeah. we
Well,
gotta
I
find-
like the idea of the survey.
Yeah. I just wanted the residents aware that there ain't enough money for both. There ain't enough money for $100,000 a year cop and roads at the same time. So pick your poison. We can get the police for free. Nobody's gonna come and do our roads for free. And if you wanna do both, well, it gets so expensive, you might as well annex yourself to St. Paul Park or Cottage Grove, because it's cheaper. So, just so people understand that. And then I'll throw this in there too. A few people said, well, the sheriff is in Newport already. Well, we really can't count on that, because the sheriff's department's got a contract with Newport. That means they work for Newport. That don't mean they leave Newport and come down here. It'd be a standalone thing, just like they're doing for Denmark Township and everybody else. And when Cheryl talked to Denmark, they were happy. And it is up to the sheriff's department to provide proper police protection. Just because we're at the end of the county, it's a big county. You go all the way from, up by Scandia, all the way down to here, and they're providing police protection for the whole thing. So, I mean, it's, they're getting our tax money, they're getting the money, it's up to them to provide the service. They've been getting by lucky so far. In fact, we asked them last year, kind of like St. Paul Park, we plow, the county. We do the county road, but yet the county reimburses us for the plowing, right, Cheryl? Asked them, why don't you do the same with the sheriff's department? We're providing the police protection, you're collecting the money, why don't you give us some money back? No, they ain't gonna do that. Why should they? They don't have to. So, but anyway, think about that for the next 2 months. If you want to, send something out and get some input back.
Okay,
Like I say to people at home, when you look at this, there ain't enough money for both. you know?
Dick, you keep
Something's
saying
gotta
that,
give.
we haven't actually sat down. I don't have a forecast of how much road and what type of repair needs to be done by what year. We don't really have a road plan. And what I looked over was, there were a lot of assumptions, and a lot of it was 20 years out.
Yep.
So I'm a little uncomfortable with you just saying we don't have enough money for roads, because we don't actually know that for a fact. We haven't forecasted and planned it long-term.
Well, what I got from the
And
county.
we can do it. I just need,
I
I
don't,
need a ballpark. I can't make it up.
I don't know what you're looking for, because the
Some
county,
help from me? With that?
Yeah,
No, I mean, it's-
I have a spreadsheet set up with the length of road. I just need the type of repair. Is it
Okay.
major, minor? How much it's gonna be? I think you have those estimates. And then I can plan out by year, ballpark. I mean, things move a little, but at least we'll be close. And at
Well,
least
the
we'll
drive
know.
is still fresh in our mind. Pioneer Road is a disaster. And the trail is good for 20 years or more.
Yeah.
I know we have people lined up for the spring to get a good road plan in place. And that's what we wanted to do, but I think we have to give kind of the sheriff an answer early, so it's kind of a.
I mean, I think
You know,
we could either
We can
meet as
do
a
that.
group and knock it out in an hour,
We could.
or I could send you a spreadsheet. You can try to fill it out.
Yeah.
And then I can try to model it,
Because
because,
we know, so the drive was a mill and overlay. That's the shortest lasting of those kinds of repairs. This part of the drive was a complete redo,
yeah,
you know, with the base and everything. So that part of the trail, that mile that we own of the trail, and then Pioneer, well, in Geneva, but that was just redone.
yeah,
It should be pretty easy to take care
I
of.
think so, yeah.
well, the question would be is, you know, we got this, you can't say we don't have anything. The county did that for you, told you to shape your roads or anything, gave you an estimate of when the repairs should be done. I agree some of them are 20 years out, but when I come up with 50 grand a year, I started with 50 grand a year and escalated to 2% a year over the 20 years in order to get to the dollar amount they had. Now granted, a lot of them costs are out, like you say, 15, 16 years. So what are you saying? Let's cut back what we put away for the next 5 years, but the last 5 years, we gotta do this?
I'm saying we don't know.
Well-
I'm not saying we should or should not do any of these things. You know, maybe we should, and I have a hunch that we do need to put more away.
Yeah.
But
I mean-
a hunch isn't, you know.
I mean,
something
if you're looking for exactly when we're gonna do it, exactly what we're gonna do, and exactly what it costs, and the exact year we're gonna do it, it ain't gonna happen.
I
because-
just said they can move plus or minus 3 years, it's fine. At least we'll have a
Yeah.
plan. We don't have one. We just are.
Well, yeah, you
No,
got a
no, you don't.
plan.
Look at it. All the money, 75% of their costs are in the last 10 years on a
Right.
40-year plan, whatever it is.
But for the next 5 are in there.
And those are all low. We're fine on all those.
Yeah,
So we
okay.
should
So
set
we're-
up a group and figure out, cause I know we talked about paving out Pioneer, we talked about a lot of different things, so I guess we should set up a meeting in the next little bit to get prioritized on what we want. And then we
Yeah.
can use those numbers and get something to them in the next 2 months before February.
Well, to me, the dollar amount's there for the next 20 years, rough dollar amount. That's already established.
Yep.
What you need to do over the next 20 years is established. It's just a question of how you want to fund it. You gonna do a little bit now, kick the can down the road and raise that amount way up in year 15, or are you gonna start putting money away now? I know there's some residents that say, well, let's just wait. Who knows what we're gonna be doing in 10 years anyway? Who cares? You know, if that's what they want to do, that's what we can do, and ultimately, it's up to the public at the annual meeting what they want to do. I mean, last year at the annual meeting, they didn't want to do hardly anything, just enough to get by for a year and kick the can down the road. Like, personally, I don't like kicking the can down the road, you know, it ends up to the next board or whatever. And if you get annexed by somebody else, that don't solve your problems, because if they come in, they assess for road repairs anyway, so you're gonna pay them. You know, that amount I come up with last year for putting 30,000 away would have increased my property taxes $300 a year. That's not a whole lot of money. So, anyway, think about it for the next month or whatever you wanna do.
Okay, so.
As far as I'm concerned, we got numbers, it's just a question how you wanna get there.
So, this is so we just covered that.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing, I'll bring this up on roads, as long as we're talking about roads. Cheryl and I, well, Cheryl checked on the county seal coating program. They have an annual seal coating bid they put out. The guy told us in January, early January. And if we want to get in on it, we got to tell them what we want to do. And I don't know if we really know what we want to do at this point in time. I don't know how late in January, if we can wait till our January meeting or not. He didn't really give a day in January, he just said early January.
Yeah, he said right after the first of the year.
Yeah. So I don't know how much cheaper that'd be, or if it's more or less, or,
Well, I think we should jump on
I,
it. The trail anyway.
I think we should,
Do you think they quote a square foot? Cause that Farron or whatever that's been doing stuff too, it'd be nice to give them an opportunity,
I think we did both of them.
right?
yeah.
The other two, the one that you got for,
Should we try and set some up with that Melissa? She was gonna come out in the spring, but maybe help drive the roads so we know, or what?
Well, which ones do you think we would pay to seal coat? I mean, that's,
yeah, 'cause.
That's why I was
'cause
hoping
what's
in the
his name
spring to get the
doesn't seal coat
professionals.
the
no,
Contracts out.
no, I mean, and we did get some
Frank
we
doesn't
did get some differences of opinion on the seal coating. One guy who rode around with us, he said they weren't worth seal coating, and then you look at what the other county blacktop guy did, he said they're worth seal coating, so. But you know what I'd like to do, our attorneys here, right, didn't you show, yeah. Let's talk about that at the end of the meeting and get to this other stuff, because we can always do the roads later. I'd like to get to that.
What about getting together with Scott to come up with a plan?
Let's do that at the end of the meeting too. I'm just looking at, we got the other people here with, that more important than us yakking about seal coating.
Okay,
Well, one thing I wanna cover is this MRCCA contract, that's this one right here. And are we, Cheryl, we anticipating us making a motion for this tonight?
I would like you to,
Okay.
because we get our official notice in January
Okay.
to start on the process, and it has to be done by the end of the year.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to accept the professional services from TKDA, and that's Sherry A. Buss, a planner.
No, they're two
They're
separate ones.
Oh,
She's retired from TKDA.
oh, so was she gonna do this?
So it's either Sherry or
Yeah.
TKDA.
Oh. And we pick one.
Yes.
Or somebody else, but we only have two right now, so.
What are the dollar amounts?
Looking at TKDA's, they're estimating $6,400.
Shit.
But, and that includes doing the mapping, whereas Sherry wouldn't be able to do the mapping, but the county is already doing the mapping for us. TKDA estimated 69 hours. And they have different types of people working on it, so anywhere between $77 an hour and $199 an hour. Sherry Buss, her estimate is for more hours. It's 104 hours, and again, these are estimates. And hers is at $65 an hour.
And that math thing on that, how much was it?
65.
I think they're coming out about the same, ain't they, when I read it? When I read it, they came out about the same dollar amount.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean-
TKDA includes the maps, though.
yes, but the county's already working on the maps for us.
Okay.
So,
So Sherry could do it for basically the same amount, and she would
Well-
just put the maps in?
One other thing she requested we don't have is different documents in Microsoft Word format. We don't have them in Word format. If you read her proposal, there's certain things she wanted, like I'd have to read it again, it's been a few weeks I read it, but there's certain of our documents she wants given to her in Microsoft Word. We don't have that. So we'd have to pay somebody to do that. Personally, myself, I'd sooner go with TKDA. And I'll tell you why. When the town board had her last time, they had the public hearing, there were a few things that were wrong in that document she provided to us. And when I brought them up at the meeting, didn't get a whole lot of support from Chair Adams, but anyway, she was mad that I brought them up. I don't know, she don't evidently understand the meaning of the word public hearing, because the public hearing is to get input on what's right, what's wrong with something. She didn't like that. Okay. Then she went and corrected them. I never got notice of it until I ran for election, and part of it was this County Road 75 turning it back to the township, and she put in there, Mr. Polta was in favor of turning that road over to the township, the county turning it over to the township. Well, what's this stuff, I thought.
I remember that.
So I called TKDA myself, talked to a guy, and I'll be darned, they corrected that, they apologized, they send out stuff to the clerk, no charge. They had everything, he looked up everything that happened, you're absolutely right, we found the documents, happier than heck to accommodate us. I would sooner work with somebody that did that for free, has all the information, isn't requesting we change stuff into Microsoft Word, has the ability to make the maps, corrected their problems. They've been around for a long time. I've been on projects with TKDA. All of them were done right. I think they'll be here in a long time. Sherry Buss is doing this on her own, on her side. If something happens to her in the next few years, who do we go to update them or anything? Myself, I'd sooner go with a professional firm than somebody doing it at home.
Especially when the price is the same. There's
They've
not
been
really much to
around
think
a long
about.
time, so
Yeah.
I think we're all in
Yep.
favor of that, okay. We'll make a motion to accept TKDA's proposal for planning services for the MRCCA ordinance for Great Cloud Island Township, Washington County, Minnesota.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept this proposal from TKDA. Any questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's the one.
Just do the two resolutions. That's
Uh,
quick.
Okay. We're gonna do these two resolutions. And resolution one is 2021-03. Anybody wanna make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion that, be it resolved by the Township Board of the Township of Great Cloud Island, Minnesota as follows. The township intends to collect its share of the ARPA funds from the state of Minnesota to use in a manner consistent with the Department of Treasury's guidelines.
I'll second that motion.
And forego the reading of the whole thing, it's gonna be available for everybody. Motion's been made and seconded to accept resolution number 2021-03. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We have resolution 2021-04, designating precinct polling locations for 22 elections in the town of Great Cloud Island, Minnesota.
This is Dick. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-04 dealing with our polling location.
This is Dan, I'll second that motion.
Motion is made and seconded to accept resolution 2021-04. Hearing no comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. So meeting dates for 2022, these are here somewhere, I have them floating around. I just have them.
You got
Okay.
that one.
I got that. Yeah. Do I need to read this?
No.
Okay, we have the dates planned for next year for the town board meetings and the planning commission meetings. And these will be on the website? Okay.
This is Dick, I'll make a motion to adopt the Board of Supervisors and Planning Commission meeting dates for 2022.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we need to set a hearing date for the AI variance request. When do we need to have that hearing? I mean, is there a time frame?
Yes, just one second. Before January 30th.
Before what?
January 30th.
Okay.
Can we just do that for our next meeting or no?
Yeah.
Right.
Before the 30th of January, we have to have the hearing.
You want to do it before our January meeting?
Can we do that?
Just before it?
Well, what if we start at 6:15? That one might take a little longer.
Okay.
Could I suggest we do it as late as possible, just because it's such a big thing and we want the community to
Yeah.
know, give us more, as much time as possible, to let everybody know about this variance request?
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't. Let's do it.
Oh, Patty don't like that.
Well, you do have your state statute, you folks are obligated to provide notice to the neighbors within 500 feet, as well as close the public hearing, so I think that your January 12th meeting is sufficient time for you folks to provide notice to the neighbors. That would be interesting.
I mean, it's 10 days till the end of the month, so I don't think it's that big of a waiting period, so I don't, yeah. I'm all for, if that's enough time, otherwise a day that week, whatever, yeah.
You mean have it? in
Before the
December?
meeting, if it, no,
Oh,
before that meeting, or if we want more time to have it on a different night, separate from,
Well, if you post that as soon as you can, how much time does that give between when you posted and the meeting would be, Cheryl?
Cheryl, I will not be available from December 20th to probably January 15th, January 20th, somewhere in there.
Is there gonna be a town board meeting or a January meeting?
There would be one on,
On the
Yeah.
12th, yes.
Would you be available on the 19th? I'd sooner have you here for that.
Wednesday the 19th or Wednesday the 26th, either one of them.
Yeah.
yeah, the 12th is the town. The 19th would work a lot better for me. I don't know if I'll be,
We can wheel you in if we have to, so.
that you might have to do. How about on the 19th?
Yeah, that's.
So do we wanna
that
do a
works.
6:30 or
Yeah,
7
we
or
can do it at 6:30.
6:30 on the 19th?
Weather could be a factor, but we'll see.
And then if Cheryl sends that notice out as soon as she can, that'll give people a little more time anyway.
Can you say that name again? Partner, man?
January 19th,
January 19th.
6:30.
right here at our little castle here. Along with that variance thing, I got another idea. It's up to you guys. What I would like to do, it's up to the rest of the board though. I would like our attorney to look at this variance hearing for them. And here's the reason being. I got a sneaking hunch this will probably end up in court one way, shape, or another, eventually down the road, either by the property owners that are affected or by aggregate industries. And if we end up in court, David's gonna be the one in court with us there anyway. So I would sooner have him look at this up front. It might eliminate a court battle or prepare us for a court battle or lead us in the right direction. So what I'd like, with the board's approval, is ask him to look at all this PAC's documentation on this property, look at the variance requests, look at the two landowner agreements that they have, and so forth. I think you're pretty familiar with a lot of this anyway, aren't you, David? And come back to us and say, I think you should do this, or you shouldn't do this, or you might do this. Does that sound good with you, David, or not?
If the board would like, I would be happy to make that review.
What do you think?
Didn't that
Yep.
happen last year?
I agree.
I thought we already kind of had a review, but
We had that planner look at it, that SHC or whatever they are, but I don't think we got a,
Not happy with that.
I'd sooner spend the money up front right now, even if it costs another few $100 to have him do that. Because I think if we don't, we're gonna pay it anyway down the road. Just makes sense to me to do it. I mean, it's, so I'll make a motion, we have David do what I was just talking about, review all the information on this and get back to us.
I think we just ask them. We don't need a motion.
Don't need a motion for that? Okay.
And you just act.
I just asked him and he said okay, so.
All right. Okay,
Dick, we're not gonna fix a road for that, just so you know.
Yeah, there's 100 feet missing on some road now.
I keep that in mind.
all right, we're at the big topic here, short-term rentals. And that's the primary reason we wanted you to come in, Dave,
Sure.
because we had, yeah, if you don't mind.
Pull up the slides.
We had, you know, the conversation at the planning commission meeting, and we are all anxiously waiting your opinion. And we had several different opinions from. Can you hear me back there? Okay. From the three that had applied for conditional use permits, the three homeowners that had applied for conditional use permits. One is here.
Just
Is-
one, yeah. Yeah, just Ted.
Just Ted, okay. And what I had, my understanding was that we will be creating an ordinance rather than doing it through a conditional use permit. And there was a little friction with that, but from one of the people that were applying for a conditional use permit. And I think the friction was overblown a little bit because my understanding is that this really needs to be covered by an ordinance, something like Marine on St. Croix has or somebody else, and just follow that. Other than the fact that the Marine on St. Croix doesn't have anything for large events. So that would be the other thing, that maybe we would do that with a licensing kind of thing. So they would have to fill out the license application, how many people, you know, and then there would be conditions on, you know, how late they could do that, I mean, for around the town. And I think that could be, used for other people too. I mean, I don't think that would be just specific to these three, people that are doing this short-term rental. And I did spend some time with the police chief in St. Paul Park, and, you know, some of the things she brought to our attention were pretty scary, you know, this, sex slave thing and kind of stuff like that. And so there would have to be some form of police presence there, you know, that they would have to pay for during an event like that. And St. Paul Park has some off-duty officers that could do that. You know, if they have a time frame, they would have to know when it happens. But I don't want to limit this to just what Marine on St. Croix allows. That's my opinion, and I think that's the way that we should go with this. We would have to have some noise constraints on these. We would have to have, you know, time frames, you know, when this could happen, how late in the evening, you know, Friday or Saturday night or whatever it is, you know. So I think that would be something that those that do these short-term rentals would appreciate, so that it's all spelled out, and there would be fees, certainly fee for the police, you know, because they're not going to do it for free. That's the way, personally, I think it should go. I know there's some others that think here on the board that it could be simpler, you know, but
Can I give that simpler opinion?
Huh?
Can I give that?
No.
Do I get my turn?
You can, but
Are you people freezing back there? Should turn the heat back up?
I've been watching it drop, but it's okay.
I think,
It's 60 degrees.
I think the direction we've been asked to go from Dave is the right direction. And that gives the town the most control. It gives the, you know, the police will know if it's a big event, you know, because they'll have to have a license, and we'll have to figure out how to put a license together, you know, how much it will cost, those kinds of things. So that's where we left it. And your opinion would be very helpful now.
I'd like to start with two real quick questions first, because one issue that we've had in this community coming up is that we have restriction between residents calling and complaining on noise or animals or different things coming up, and the police get called out, and then we don't receive a written notice back, or they go out and they say, you know, it wasn't that bad. How do we as a community handle situations like that? Because I just take a police officer's word for it. So if I get an animal complaint and a person comes out and they say, no, the dog's not neglected, you know, what do we do as a town? Or if somebody goes to a wedding saying it's too loud and the cops go out and they return, you know, we get that back, there's no citation. You know, we're running into that a lot. How do we handle that as a, that's one question I kind of have. Is that for us to go to a police chief or to a resident that's having a problem and the officer's not doing it? Is that for them to go to a police chief, or how does that get resolved?
Well, to answer your question, in a routine question of a violation or potential violation that gets called into the police department, they look at it and then they render some opinion short of charging. The general preference is that information comes from the police department to township staff. For example, the town clerk is the recipient of that. then the town clerk can distribute that information to the town board. And if the board wants to know more or needs further inquiry, wants to satisfy itself that the right questions were asked, then, you know, an individual town board member normally would either ask the clerk to run those questions to ground, or may, in that event, contact the police department and a specific officer that undertook the review. I say that because sometimes what you'll hear, and I think it's a legitimate thing, is that the police department, one, doesn't want to be, say, at the beck and call of any given board member who happens to have a view on it. They want to respond generally to the direction of the town and the town board as a whole, and that's a legitimate concern. Second is for the town board member's own protection. You don't want to create a situation where, you know, one board member is claimed to be driving a claim of violation. Instead, you know, it's best left to the discretion of the police officer reviewing it, prosecutor, and or the town board, ultimately, if they review it collectively. So that's a long way of saying that in those cases where you seek additional information about a police review of some complaint, legitimate, non-existent, whatever it might be, normally you'd have the clerk collect additional information.
Okay, all right. And then my other, my take on the short-term rental or rentals in general, that we really don't have anything in Gray Cloud for rental properties. So like, my take on it is that, you know, I understand having like a CUP or something to allow somebody to rent out their property. My interpretation is we already have ordinances in play and stuff, so if somebody's renting a house for 3 days or whatever, they're to follow the guidelines that we already have as a community, you know, so I don't, for me, I kind of feel like issuing a CUP for a rental to be able to rent out your property, then we know who's doing that, but they're to follow those guidelines. And then as far as like events go, I feel like we should have a license just for events, and that can have different stipulations, I guess, for that. But as far as like rentals, I don't see a need to have a bunch of side ordinances or, you know, a more vague system for rentals, because we really haven't ran into a problem. I know there's, you know, always situations of people coming in of drugs, of different things. That stuff's all illegal. It's all already, you know, against the law. So I don't know that we need to overcomplicate. And that's where I guess, I don't know if we'd still be covered as a community, but I don't know if we need to go rewrite new ordinances just to protect ourselves against something that's already kind of protected. So I guess that's kind of, my take is to have a CUP on a rental to rent out your property, and then to have above and beyond for these licenses, and that's where we could get into different outdoor noise or different things to kind of cater to a new thing that we kind of have coming to Gray Cloud.
So if I could respond to
Yeah.
that, and the question of whether and how to regulate short-term rentals is purely a philosophical one for the town board. And reasonable people can differ and can have different opinions on that. We've talked a little bit about some examples. You know, for example, May Township, their viewpoint was, we don't want any short-term rentals in the township because they are a rental that is different than any other kind. If you rent your house out for 30 days or a 12-month period, you tend to get a different occupant than you will if you rent your house out for a weekend for purely recreational. It changes, in their view, the nature of the activities. It's kind of a crash pad, but it's the place you go to whip it up for a weekend, and then when it's done, you know, you go back and that's it. And that, the concern there was that that has a really distinct impact, or can, on the neighbors. Other cities have a similar view, and so thus you see this proliferation of these short-term rental ordinances. Marine on St. Croix is an example which you saw. Their view was, no, we'd like to invite that use within certain limitations. So we don't want to exclude it entirely because it brings new people to town and there's a benefit to that. And, you know, if it's administered responsibly, we can manage it and handle it. And so cities differ, but I would say this. If you, the threshold question is, do you want to be in the regulation of short-term rentals? Yes or no? Because it's true that the township, like most townships and cities, don't regulate 30-day or 12-month rentals, right? I could rent my house for 30 days and nobody would, that's not a threshold at which cities have determined that they're gonna act about rentals. But they have said that there's something different in the nature of a short-term rental that justifies some regulations. And others have said, we don't care to regulate it. So where you come down on that, I don't think there's a right answer to it. It's just the answer that you feel is correct. But if you determine that you would like some regulation of the short-term rental, it being sort of a different breed of cat for rental, it's kind of a different species. You know, the recommendation would be that you then create an ordinance that says short-term rentals are permitted, if that's your view, and they're permitted through this permitting tool. And our recommendation on that, our recommendation as to the permitting tool that we think is best to use is the license. You know, a license. There's a lot of benefits to that, having a license rather than a CUP. Those cut mainly in favor of the township. There's some drawbacks to it compared to a CUP. But by and large, you know, it'd be the, not to say you couldn't do it by CUP, but CUP is a, you know, a long-term and permanent vested right for the property. And I know of no city or township that actually issues CUPs for rental, period. I only know of cities or townships that offer either CUPs or permits or licenses for short-term rentals. So, to answer your question, if you're satisfied as a threshold matter that you want to be in the business of regulating short-term rentals because you think that they're unique and they have some particular features that affect neighbors and neighborhoods and so forth, you know, you should create an ordinance, and you've seen some samples of those. And again, my suggestion would be that you use the licensing tool. Now, one of the beauties of the licensing tool is that you can change it on a moment's notice. It doesn't require, like a CUP, you know, a lot of, first of all, you can't change a CUP once it's issued unless there's an application for it and the applicant is agreeable. So it gives the town greater flexibility for enforcement. It allows the property owner an opportunity to operate, and it's just, it can be developed and refined over time. If some regulation is onerous and unwanted, you can get rid of it. If you need additional ones, you can adopt new ones. So I hope that answers your question, but I can't pretend to tell you that there's a right answer to that fundamental question that you ask. Should we be in this business?
And I would assume that we'd probably keep, like, events, being able to host events, keep that separate from, I mean, two separate entities, right? Like,
Well, certainly the licensing piece
Right.
would be for that event.
You know, throw in my excuse me, my 2 cents. We really didn't have any problem with these, you know, I mean, and we had one going on, we didn't even know it existed. Been going on for 2-3 years. And that one was just basically renting his house out. People come have a little family reunion, or they meet for a few days. I mean, you didn't even know it was there. The other one started, and really nobody even knew that was there for a while until, got some noise complaints. Okay, so, just personally myself, I'd like to keep this as simple as we could. And just personally, I don't care what they do in their house, how long they rent it, how many, if they rent it by the hour, the day, of the month. Just don't bother your neighbors, with noise outside or whatever it happens to be. Like I read the one on Marine here, and it said, events that ain't allowed. Example events include, these are not allowed: sponsored events, conference gatherings, retreats, concerts, banquets, receptions, weddings, reunions, dances, parties, or similar use. Well, people will come to town, have a family reunion here, they all show up at the airport. There might be 15 family members. Ted's place, you probably put 30 people in there, with no problem. 30 people in there, no problem. Some of these even say, well, you can't even shuttle them in, you can't taxi them in. Well, how are they supposed to get there? That's kind of eliminating them altogether. So like I say, I don't care if he's got 200 people back there if you don't bother his neighbor. So what I'd like to see is, as simple as we can, keep the noise down, don't bother the neighbor. And not just limit it to, say, he's my neighbor. But let's just say Dan was having a party every Friday and Saturday night and a band outside and what have you. That's fine for, a few times a year, but not every Saturday night all summer long. So, I'd like to control that in the simplest, easiest way we can. I'd sooner let people do what they want to do, and that's pretty much the township kind of has been that way. It's kind of a free-range township, might want to call it, as long as you don't get your neighbor too mad at you.
Right, you're right, stop it, that your neighbors don't.
Yeah.
So, in that case, so Marines is generous in the sense that it allows them, but it's narrow in the sense that it doesn't allow these events. Because they identify that as a potential source of concern to them personally, but that doesn't mean it's the same in every town. If you wanted some version of that, the option would be that you do create a license that allows short-term rentals. You may limit those in number, or you may say they're unlimited. Anybody can ask one. We'll issue them on 12-month intervals, and then it would contain some sort of general non-disturbance language that gives you some teeth to deal with intrusions on neighbors and so forth, but doesn't flatly prohibit so-called events. If after 2 or 3 years or 4 years, you find that there really is some problem with events at these facilities, then you could amend your licensing ordinance at that time. On the other hand, if you don't really develop a problem, because apparently you haven't so far, and it seems like it's the answer to the question that nobody asked, how do we get rid of events? You can just keep going with the licensing ordinance that you have in place. So, again, a philosophical question for the town board. If it was your view that you wanted to have a license that permitted STRs and did not prohibit special events, we put the kind of generic nuisance language in it and say, mind your manners, and that would be fine. The other virtue of a license is that if it really became a problem and somebody was just killing it every weekend of every month during the year, they'd be on a 12-month cycle and you could just not renew the license.
Okay. Well, I'd kind of like to go down that road myself. And that's kind of what he's suggesting. I don't want to overregulate, but I don't want to underregulate either. I don't want to,
Well, Marines would be, if we copied that, we would copy it, the parts we needed, and then go into the licensing piece for.
Marines is pretty detailed. I'd have to read it again, but
It
I
is
think
detailed.
that showed
I feel like
number
for
of
me-
people per bedroom and cars
me,
and
it's
all kinds of stuff.
No, I mean, as simple as no cars on the road and then having a way to, I'm not sure how we decibel or how you actually deal with noise, but, I mean, noise
The
and number of people are.
The only problem we really have would be regulating noise.
Yeah.
People can't park in the street anyway, so I mean, if one of these residents wants 15 cars in their driveway, have at it if it fits.
Yeah.
The regular residents do anyway. A lot of them don't run, but they're there.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Well, if you're of a mind that it's a business that you want to be in, the business of sort of lightly regulating SDRs, having a regulatory tool, we could put in some general noise type material, but if in future years you needed to refine it, you make that decision at that time.
Well, and Dave, we didn't sign up for this. This just came to us because people were doing it. And then now we've got to get some control of it.
The events are the ones, one municipality's viewpoint is this, that the event can be a big economic driver because you can pack 10 or 15 or 20 people into a house and therefore get $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 literally a night. And they all split it up and all bets are off. And so it was the events that they have particular concern on. But they do not have, generally speaking, the parcel size that you have in Great Brook. And they don't have, for example, sort of the expanse of the property.
Yeah.
So, you know, if your view is that you want a light touch for starters, you can certainly come up with something.
And I understand that, Maureen, you know, I mean, these, especially the ones on the water, they're not very, if they got 100 feet, that's
That's big.
good for them, yeah.
You know, ours are big too, but they're, you know, like Ted, I think it's Tim sitting over there. That's, that's who we're talking about, okay? You know, the guy right next to you there that lives next door to him, 500 feet away, as the crow flies. You know, they're both back in the pucker brush by the driveway. You know, one's got a half-mile driveway, the other got 3/4 mile driveway. But they come back and get over here. But you can hear the noise, I'm sure, to other residents.
Because of the river. You know how sound covers, you know,
Yeah.
carries
Yeah.
over the river. So we're sitting in our yard and all of a sudden we have to be in the house because across the bay is all kinds of noise with the PA system and the, you know, that's not a good idea.
It's extremely.
I mean, this is not, should be an event center, right? These rentals should not be an event center where people come, you know, and have a big crowd, and that's what they have had, it's a big crowd, because they've got the space, you know, there's the space.
Well, it's like so many things. Again, we got this fundamental question that you asked, to what extent do you want to be in this business? People differ, municipalities differ. Some people have said it's around the lakes and the water that you get the issues because they're there for one purpose during the weekend. And it's, you know, it's just to recreate, and they do. And then they're gone. But I will say this, I mean, and I'm sure the town board recognizes that we do the regulation, we can make it strong. Marines is litigation tested, it's good, you know, and we can go with a lighter version of that if you want. But a lot of this comes down to, you know, how respectful the neighbor is of their fellow neighbor, right? And if you don't have that fundamental thing going on, then you're kind of chasing it. Again, with a license, it can be revoked pretty readily. But one hopes that everybody is sensitive to what the neighbors do. Generally.
I think 100% we should be pushing to separate rentals from events. I think those are two completely separate different things.
Well,
And then my biggest concern, that's my biggest concern is it's the noise, but we get, cops get called, they go out, they've responded that it's been an okay amount of noise, it's been fine, and that's where we run into that sticky situation. Because I know me and Dick live next to each other. The other day we were both outside in the yard and we're like, man, is that something going on at Ted's place or what is that? We could hear it. We drive down, it was coming from Inver Grove, a football game across the river. And it's just like, you get on that water, it can be from St. Paul, it just travels a long ways, and it might even, I mean, you can hear a conversation, I'm sure you could hear people having a conversation, you know? So it's,
Oh, especially if they have a PA system.
we don't wanna say that the noise isn't loud at your house, we're not trying to, it's hard to, you know, we're getting reports on what it is, and we want people to use their property in any manner that they can find a way, you know, respectfully to do so.
You're talking rentals, and there could be different people every frickin' weekend, as opposed to a homeowner that has this property and has a couple, you know, festivities a year. Who cares about that? But the fact that you could have every weekend.
We probably won't hear that rental when the railroad tracks go in, so. Don't know where that came from.
I think what we're looking at is, you know, how do you even change events? Because, example, weddings, reunions, similar uses. 15 family members come from around the country, you have a family reunion here. Is that an event? Is that a family reunion? You know, I mean, and that's the kind of things that I think, especially the other house. Well, yours has that too, right,
well,
Ted?
you
People
could
come
have, the,
in. Is that an event or?
the number of occupants would dictate that.
Well,
If it's 30 people, then
well, you can go to church on Sunday morning, they got 200 people in there, it's fairly quiet. You go down to the bar down in St. Paul Park and there's 14 people in there and you can't hear yourself talk. You know, so
no,
numbers.
I get that, but,
I don't think the number of
we can have the,
Yeah.
we could have a time frame for noise, we could have, you know, I mean, and we want to do it ordinance, and then the ordinance contains the license piece.
You know, even a time frame for noise, don't cut it. Because what if you say, well, it's only 8 to 10? Well, if I lived next door, that'd piss me off if every Saturday night it was 8 to 10. You know, personally myself, I'd like to see Ted do whatever he wants inside, no noise outside, keep the noise down. I mean, does that mean no noise? No. I mean, you got some people out there making, I mean, you can hear the people talking in their boats when you go by your house. You know, so I mean, you know, to say no noise is pretty much impractical. A PA system and a DJ out on the deck, you know, that's noise, you know, I mean, so, I don't know. What's the possibility of you coming
Okay.
up with some type of language for
Well,
us?
what I was gonna do was come up with a menu of possible regulations, but I think through, you know, working on it and looking at it, you'll have to decide. One of them, for example, is, I've seen it, no amplified music. And you could ask this board right now, so what's your view? Should a short-term rental user be permitted to use or have amplified music, indoors or out? What would be your view on that?
I would say no.
And
I guess amplified music, no. I guess in a and I mean, we're just gonna keep pointing at Ted because he's our guy. But like a situation, I mean, a wedding ceremony is 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So I guess for me, if it's pointed away to just say a quick thing for 20 minutes at 5 o'clock, to me, I don't think that's terrible. But no, absolutely not to, you know, amplified music. But it's all going to boil down to how do you control that sound decibel and who's right when the police show up because they call for noise and not.
well, it may be the case, as I mentioned, that if I offered you some regulatory tools in a license with kind of a light touch license.
Multiple choice.
Yeah, whatever you adopt this year, early next year, it may not look like that in 12 to 18 months because you may say, this isn't working or this is too tight, and so it's a work in progress, and your experience will teach you what you want and what you don't, and you'll be the judges of this. So, I think for starters, if I came up with that licensing arrangement that sort of reflects where you are philosophically, you could go through and cut out what you did.
Why don't we do that? That sounds good to me.
Can we hear from anyone? Does anyone else want to talk on it or not?
Anybody else? Well, I was gonna add one other thing, you know, just so we don't think we're being too easy, we could rezone the property and make everything he's doing legal. So, I mean, you know, if we don't totally shut it, I mean, his dad said, shut them down, no short-term rentals, no nothing, we don't want any of this. That's one extent. The other extent, we could rezone the property and let him do whatever he wanted. So we're trying to come to a middle ground here.
What about just adopting a noise ordinance for everybody?
Well, we don't have one.
I think we already have a noise ordinance,
No,
but
we don't.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's in our nuisance ordinance.
But it's subjective. It
Yeah.
doesn't say, you can't mow your grass before 7 o'clock in the morning on a
Right.
weekend. It doesn't say that.
No,
The only one we have is the minor. And we're missing that.
But it's just like this gentleman said, I mean, he's not gonna wanna listen to his neighbor with a DJ on the deck, or maybe Dick said it, or one of you guys said it. I mean, nobody's gonna wanna listen to that.
No, I get that, but
We've never had a DJ on the deck. I mean, people bring out like, you know, like some speakers, but they have them by the house. And, you know, the cops get called, the cops come out and they say, this is reasonable.
That's because they
I mean, I don't know what else to say. You know, the cops are there when they're hearing the
I
noise.
don't,
And I know
I
that.
get that, but
Yeah.
I don't wanna have this argument.
What's that?
Right.
All
Don't
right.
wanna have it at all.
Right on.
So, Cheryl, so, you and Cliff are working on that ordinance a little bit.
Yes,
Is Cliff willing to keep
Cliff
doing that?
quit.
no.
I will help you with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Or are we gonna have David come up with something?
Well, he's gonna come up with something in the license piece. I think we
Oh.
gotta take Marine on the St. Croix and make it fit us. That's what I think we got.
I don't,
Big X
I don't
right
think
through
we
it.
need an ordinance, I think.
No,
go
you
with the
gotta have
license.
Are you, when you say
ordinance-
ordinance, Paul, are you just saying an ordinance stating that you need a
Ordinance,
license for this
yes.
stuff? Okay, so no
Yes.
extra
So
garbage.
the ordinance would have, you know, the short-term rental, basic stuff in it. And that's what Marines has, but they don't have a licensing component.
Do we
So
need
the ordinance would.
both?
Yes, yes, you have to
Yeah,
have.
it's a
yeah.
permit that you get,
Yeah,
you know, so the property owner's got some reflection of their approval and terms are set out. in it.
The license or the ordinance, or both?
Well, both. The ordinance gives you the ability to issue the license, subject
Oh.
to certain terms and conditions.
yeah.
And then the license is sort of the,
Well, why don't we let him do both instead of, we ain't got anybody else to do it anyway.
Should we be, do we need to have the short term in there, or should we just be having this to all rentals, and we can always, cause
I
we don't
think
have
we
anything
need to-
for any rental
I think we
properties in
need to
Great
be-
Cloud. Does it
Well-
really matter how long a duration? If they're not complying, then we can pull the license?
I would submit to you that it does, that the whole predicate for getting involved in this kind of regulation anyway is this assumption and claim, and probably reality, but people are different, that the short-term rental is a different rental thing than your 30 days.
Absolutely.
We just don't have anything for any rentals, period, so,
Correct.
yeah, I have no idea
We
how many
don't-
people are renting
and
out
I
there.
don't really wanna get into
No,
that. If somebody
yeah.
wants to rent their house out to somebody for a couple of years, I don't care.
Yep, okay.
So, somebody asked something about a noise. The only thing we got now in our nuisance ordinance says, this is prohibited. All unnecessary noise or vibrations which disturb the peace and repose of neighboring property owners or the public at large.
Yeah, it's
That's the,
horrible.
that's the
It's
extent
horrible.
of it, yeah.
It's horrible.
So maybe we can include some language that deals
There,
with amplified
yes,
sound.
there would be
I
times
have-
of day, there would be,
I have language to that effect.
yeah.
That should almost go into our, that ordinance for
That
the
should
whole
be in
city.
our nuisance ordinance anyway,
Yeah.
because I don't want somebody cutting the grass at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Dick?
My neighbor, I don't want to.
What
Don't
grass?
Might I suggest that, for example, I take Marine's ordinance, cut it back, give the authority to issue the licenses, eliminate the prohibition on events, include some specific protections, you know?
Yeah.
And then send it back to you so that, you know, maybe it gets
That'd be
you 40 to
perfect.
60%
That'd
of
be
the way down the
perfect.
road.
Yeah,
That'd be perfect.
okay.
I'd really appreciate
And
it.
I'd encourage you.
Then she doesn't have to do all that.
Okay. You notice in the preamble to some of these ordinances, there's this explanation of what STRs are, and that you did all this research and you evaluated why, you know, why they function the way they do and what's good and what's bad about them. I'd encourage you to continue your own personal review of those resources, because it became an issue in Marine where they say, when you say STRs are an issue, what evidence do you have to support that proposition? And if you just do your online research, cities like Roseville, they've had some issues with it. Maybe Duluth, Minnetonka, Stillwater, others. So continue, if you would, with evaluating it for your own satisfaction, and we'll get you a product that gets you part of the way there, and then you can make a informed decision.
Okay. Okay, we done
Dave,
with that
I-
for now then?
I have one quick question. When I was reading through Stillwater's, I noticed that it's kind of a lengthy process, but you apply for it, somebody goes out and reviews the property, then if they okay it, the fire department goes out and inspects the property. If we don't have anything like that, like the fire department goes out and inspects, is there any liability on us?
No, in fact, some
Okay.
cities have declined to do that for that very reason. They don't want to be assuring anybody as to fire safety standards in any given residence. So well, Stillwater's got a massive public infrastructure to allow them to do that, their own fire department. Others have just said, that's not our business.
I got two other questions for you. We done with this part and we know what we want him to do? I got something totally separate than that, as long as he's here. You made a comment about conditional use permits are go with the property. How does this work? Example, we'll give somebody a conditional use permit to run a hair salon in their house. Well, we've done it. So how does that work? Or we gave a guy a conditional use permit to build fireplace things in his house. Gave somebody else one to have snow plowing stuff in his yard. Should we be doing that or not be doing that?
Well, to answer the question, when permitting first became a statutory vehicle, an opportunity that was given to cities through statutes to issue permits, one of the first ones was the conditional use permit. So pretty much everything that the city was asked to approve or regulate, it dealt with, the city and township, it dealt with by using the CUP tool. And so that's not uncommon. You've got these sort of specific uses operated by specific users that are operating or that have the benefit of a CUP, a long-term property tie permit. And some of them just don't make a lot of sense, but that was the only tool that existed. Thereafter, the statutes changed and other approval mechanisms, permitting mechanisms were put in place. And one of those, for example, is the interim use permit. So they in some townships and cities have said, for something long-term, like somebody's mining, or somebody is operating an ongoing business with a building or something like that, we'll continue to use CUPs. But for things that are more in the nature of a person-specific use, they'll use what's called the IUP, or the interim use permit, and that by statute says it lasts for a specified period of years or until a specified event. And so it may say, you can continue with this use on that property until the property is sold, or for 3 or 5 years, or until the use is terminated by you, and it may not be transferred to a future owner. So the IUP is a more tailorable and short-term permitting vehicle to deal with some of this.
So we should be using them instead of the conditional use permit.
My suggestion would be that if you're thinking, you might want to think about what uses you have, what requests you get, and whether or not you want to move those out of a CUP category into an IUP category. And it also has an added benefit for the owner as well, because the IUP usually has lower fees. IUP is generally subject to lighter review. It doesn't, it's just an easier permit to grant and to withdraw, for that matter, than a CUP. So that's a way of answering your question and saying that as you think about it, if you think that there are some uses that you think are more property and person and time frame specific, I'd suggest an IUP.
Like
And
right now,
that's interim or intermittent?
Interim.
Interim.
Yep, and the statute says it is a permit that lasts until a specified date or a specified event.
as long as we're paying you, you mind sending us some information on that too?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
we've got some sample IUP
Okay.
ordinances.
Oh, that'd be good.
here's the ones we got going now that I know of. We got a woman's, does hair cutting in her house. Another one's, a couple of dog kennels. These are all we've been doing with conditional use permits. Another guy's building fireplace things in his barn. I think
So if we had- if we had like the-
one's fixing cars. They're fixing cars and everything. So that's the ones, that's the stuff we got going. Well, we've done them all with a conditional use permit. And maybe that's not what we should be doing then.
I would tend to suggest that a lot of those you use an IUP. And again, I would say that some of the applicants, the citizens who stand to need or want those, would actually be a little bit better serviced because it's just a lesser process to get an IUP.
Well, our CUPs are pretty easy too. You come to the door, pay your $25 and in 15 minutes you got it.
Just give us your insurance.
Well, we won't talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, next question for you. this goes back to our, talking about using the sheriff's department. Would there be, I'm getting at if there's court cases. Right now, we use St. Paul Park. We've never had anything that I know of. Well, the only thing we need an attorney for, you've known about, but if there's criminal proceedings or something like that, I don't know what would, say there was a big legal thing down there at the police, but we got St. Paul Park. Right now, would their attorney pay, they hire you? We haven't run into this yet. Versus if the sheriff's department does it, does the county attorney take care of it?
I need to know a little bit more about the manner and means by which St. Paul Park began offering police services to the township, because generally speaking, the sheriff's office does, but I assume that St. Paul Park does because there's a written agreement somewhere that tells us that they're going to do that, and normally that agreement will specify who's responsible for what in the event of a claim. And
Ours ain't too long, it ain't too detailed. Page and a half, you send us $99,000, we come down patrol.
okay, well, it's
No, I
probably worth.
think the original contract is in
Okay.
here.
Okay, it's probably worth at least looking at and seeing where the duties run in the line, and then also furnishing it to your insurance provider to make sure they're comfortable with it,
Okay.
because, you know, it's a timely question, obviously.
So would it, from a legal standpoint, would we be better under St. Paul Park or better off under the sheriff? Just for community protection, I mean, liability, legal liability?
That's purely, I would say, a policy question for the town board to answer. Some people, I mean, some municipalities just differ on that, and I, you know, respectfully couldn't presume to answer it. There are different arguments. Some say it's good for this reason, others say it's not so good for that reason. And if you were interested in finding out more about that, I mean, I think it's probably best to have some preliminary conversations with both providers and see what their thoughts are. But that is a subject of heated debate, or it can be, and I'd have to defer to the town board's own judgment about how you were better served.
Of course, we just ask you.
Yeah, no, I understand that. They both, I think, do a great job. You know, the cities, I know that the townships that have the sheriff's office protection are happy about it. Others are pleased to have some form of local, comparatively local engagement.
Okay. That's my last question.
No, happy to answer.
You sure?
For now.
Can I just ask you two, are we better off spending our money, just us three, ripping through that marine on St. Croix, adjusting it how we want and getting it back together instead of spending time with him or not, or?
Oh, I like what he can put together for the
Okay, I
license.
just, yeah.
Yeah, I'd sooner have him do it because he's looking at a license and an ordinance.
Just keep hearing how we're broke, so I'm just trying to throw it out there.
Well, we got a lot of money.
Devil's advocate.
Well, it's good that we know that. We can be sensitive, we can partner with you on that. In other words, we can keep it to a minimum,
Yeah.
and still do the work. So I'd rather know that that's an issue of concern than not.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll work, with you, that's fine.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep,
Thank you.
Appreciate you showing up.
anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
That was enlightening.
You know how dumb we were until we found stuff out.
All right. The only thing we've got to talk about is, did you want to still talk about roads?
Yeah, the seal coating, basically.
Seal coating.
If we want to do anything or nothing. You know, I just.
With the county you're talking.
Yeah, with the county. I
I
mean,
think we should find out.
and we don't have to, I mean, we wouldn't have to, I don't know. I'm just thinking it'd be cheaper.
I think we just need to have a quick meeting with all of us to come up with when we think they need to be done and have a better idea.
Well, this is it right now. I mean, if you wait till January, you might be too late.
I was under the assumption that we were gonna be doing a full-blown tour with somebody in the spring that would help. This
Well,
needs to be
that's
done
too
in
late,
this year.
because we
and
gotta
that-
get
yeah.
our request into the county in
Request has
January,
to be in.
first part of January. Now, just myself personally, I drove around the island and looked, and
I think the only one we can do currently is the drive, because we can't do Pioneer, because that's shot.
the only one I looked at, when I drove around and looked, was this 99th over here. That road's in pretty good shape. But seal coating would, I think, give us a lot of life on that one. But it's just one tiny little road, to come down, so I
If we
mean,
did that and the drive,
and I thought about the drive too.
but we gotta do some repairs.
Yeah, and I don't know, because after me and Dan looked at it one day on the way home, and it is busting up more in them inside curves on both corners. So there's no doubt in my mind, we're gonna have to spend a fair amount of money this summer on them two inside curves.
50,
Have you seen them lately? Probably when we went
Yeah.
around there. And that might be $40,000-50,000.
It's more
It
than
was more than that. So now, that road, the one guy came down and talked to us. Well, what's that guy we rode around with? Who was he? Frank.
that. Frank,
Frank. He told us it wasn't worth seal coating. Okay. Because
well,
the cracks are gonna come
If we
back.
repaired those two inside corners,
Yeah,
then seal.
we could do that. Pioneer is, it's like this, but it's not chunking out or anything. So that would be another one a candidate to seal coat. Now this 105th down here,
Keith Road,
that's all busted up. But then again, you look at that thing from the county and they suggested putting a double layer of seal coat on there.
oh, really?
Yeah, I think they had that on another one too. So, they get you kind of confused on what you should or shouldn't do.
Where did our aliens go? Oh, he's still here.
He's still here. Well, let me look and see what it says
The
up
other
there.
one had a shot of bourbon.
It's still rolling.
Bring them back in.
We're still in business. Let's see.
Why don't you, just a suggestion, maybe for next year, because we've never done this before,
Yeah.
maybe do it on 99th, see how much it costs, see how it looks, how it works, and then maybe look at doing Pioneer or whatever, 2023.
Dick, I think I should make a call to that Melissa, and she'll do a free consult with us, because I'm not gonna try and make a decision on what roads need patching before seal coating and all that stuff.
No, I was just looking
And I like Cheryl's idea.
like 105th Street. They're shown in their 2022 pavement preservation project. Minor patching and double seal coat.
Double seal.
Yeah, they got that on some other ones too. But
Well, we could do those two,
maybe that was the only one.
99 and 105th.
We would need to know dates they're gonna seal coat, because we have to have contractors line up to patch to do all that stuff too. So there's a lot that goes into all that.
Yeah. On Pioneer Road, well, they're showing that out for. See, this doesn't really put all the seal.
Yeah.
This is, what do you want to call it? Capital improvement project. So it really doesn't include, like, say you just want to seal coat something. Say Geneva needed seal coating. That ain't in here, because that's considered maintenance.
Oh,
Okay. But like, yeah, it kind of surprised me. 105th, that was one I just went over to look at. Yeah, it says minor patching and double seal coat. And they recommended that in 2022. But anyway, well, they got a disclaimer on that too. Before you do anything, you should hire an engineer and do core samples and all that other good stuff, which we can do that. But no, we don't have to do anything tonight or this year. But if we want to get on in that county one, and like Dan said, we get
I
it.
think we should.
I think we should.
We could
though.
just say we do 105th and 99.
I guess
I-
I wish we could get some sort of price thing, because I know that lady that did Geneva, they did a great job with that road. I know she said in the spring she'd come out, she'd ride with all of us free of charge. She'd go through every single road, tell us how we should patch, what we should
You could
do.
give her a call and say,
If she
We
would
can
come meet
still-
with us
we can
now.
still do
tell her
that.
the county.
Yeah.
is-
Let me see what
I'd like to do that, because then we would know.
Let me see what they show
what to do.
for Pioneer, what they show for that.
I'll report back.
See, like, okay, Pioneer Road paved surface, well, they threw that out in the 2026, 2029. Minor patching and seal coat. I was wondering if they were showing, tear it out, redo it. But when I drove around here, about a month ago, I drove around, looked at it. Pioneer was in pretty good shape. I mean, it's not far from smooth, but it's not chunking out, it's not breaking out or nothing. And the same with across the street over here. Then we're in good shape, so now do we throw money at the ones that are in good shape to try and preserve them? Like Keith's Road down there, 105th.
We get a professional opinion.
Yeah, that ain't chunking out, but it's a piece of junk. But yet they don't recommend tearing it out because it's so little used.
I'll get a hold of Melissa tomorrow, and then I'll see if she can come meet, and I'll let Cheryl know, and then I don't know if we can all go for a drive, or I can go for a drive and give a
Well, just
report
take
or
her-
something.
take her for a
Yeah.
Well, would you be interested in this for next year?
Oh, boy.
For the county part of it, to kind of go along with what Cheryl said, to give it a shot. The two roads that don't need any other work, in my opinion anyway, are 99 and Pioneer. Okay, what if we seal coated, got a quote on them too, from the county?
Instead of Keith's Road?
Yeah, instead of Keith's. Okay, here's another reason for Keith's. That whole corner up there, that triangle corner, they suggested tearing out the one road. It's all busted to shit up there. If we were gonna do anything there, we should probably tear that blacktop out and redo it and consider getting rid of that one corner, maybe. I don't want the residents to think of that. You know how they suggested, say you're coming out of Keith's, and you wanna head to Cottage Road, you go straight and up there. They suggested just get rid of that corner, that part, where the people have to take a left turn and go past Greavy's house to come out.
Interesting.
And I did drive around that a couple times, and if you come up to that corner and you wanna look, to see the traffic coming from the left
Your
is,
neck better work.
yeah, your neck better work well. But on the other corner, if we did anything, it should be made more of a T than the Y it is. So what I'm thinking is if we did anything on 105th, it'd be way more cost. And so instead of spending any money seal coating it, maybe just let it go and, I mean, it's not in bad, I mean, it's not in good shape, but it's, it's not terrible either. I don't know. I'm just thinking that with Pioneer and 99th, I think we could preserve them maybe longer. Keep the long-term capital expense down on it.
Okay,
What do you think,
that
Dan?
makes sense.
I think I'm gonna call Melissa, get a professional opinion,
Okay.
and then I'll get back to you.
Well, what do you think about our idea, though, of doing 99th and Pioneer seal coated?
I think I'll ask Melissa if she thinks it's a good idea to stick money into that, or what her,
Okay.
the
Okay.
right process. I'm just a dumb plumber, so,
Well, remember there's double seal coating.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, you can always double seal it.
first time I ever heard that.
just gravel it.
All right,
And-
I make
So
a
the-
motion
So the
to,
plan is Dan's gonna contact Melissa, and then either he'll go for a ride with her, or.
you want me to let you know what I hear from her, so you know if I'm going with her or what I'm doing?
I just need somebody to let me know what I should get back to the county with. Whether we wanna get in.
We'd have till January, right? Or
Right, right.
yeah.
Well, we should let them know.
For me, I personally think that they were a very fair price that did
Yeah.
Geneva, so I don't know how much different. I would assume the county be cheaper, but to commit to something without actually knowing what we're really doing, what we're patching, I don't really.
think we have, well, sure, we'll have to find out. I don't think we have to commit, we just gotta put in what we'd like done. Because I'm sure other people have said, we want to do 8 miles of road,
So,
and all of a
yeah.
sudden, the middle of summer come, we only got money for 6 miles of road.
I think you need to know what their block window is and when they do us, because if they would seal coat us in what, July or June, we might not be ready. We might not have a repair, roads patched and done
Well,
ahead of time.
The two we're talking about doing don't need any repair work.
Just blast it.
Yeah, well, there might be a little this spring, which would get that spray guy down there again.
I personally think we could probably get, I just like the price that we had from that person, and I think coming up
Yeah.
with a good plan and getting a tour and getting all that, I don't know enough about roads to say, let's just line up and
Well,
get
I'm
two done
thinking
and see how it
just get
goes.
both. See what the county
Yeah.
says, what they would come out with, and see what she comes up with.
And we're just getting on a list for approval for price, like they would just give us,
I
mean-
will verify.
okay, yeah. I don't wanna sign up for something I don't.
Hey, you
really-
know what else I was gonna bring up, what's kinda funny is, I haven't looked just lately, but that 4,000 some bucks that they charge to crack seal Geneva, that's about spot on what the county had on that sheet. So. Well, then back to Scott's budget thing, I was gonna talk about that too, what do you wanna do with this budget thing now?
Well, that's what we need to do. We need to get a tour. We need to get when we want to do these roads, what we actually, like, that's just a general idea, like Scott says. So we need to have, okay, in 2 years, we're expected this big of a thing. In 5 years, we're expecting this.
It's
So I
right
think we
there.
need,
It's
yeah.
right there.
Well, it is, but, so we need to draw that on a plan then, I guess, and,
Yeah.
there's a
We're
lot
gonna have a
of,
plan though.
Well, I guess we don't have to have that till the annual meeting, when people vote, because it's gonna tie into the police contract. I mean, if we go with the sheriff, that gives us all kinds of extra money. If we don't go with the sheriff, well, then we're limited to what the people vote in. And if it's like last year, you ain't gonna have enough money to do shit.
Well, we didn't have a plan. We didn't have anything for people to vote on. Just, I think we're short. Let's throw some money at it. We just need a plan so people understand why we're not gonna have police. It's to pay for this plan. We don't have shit. We don't.
Hey, what?
We don't have it. We don't have a plan, and it won't take us long. I've got
No, it won't.
everything laid out.
Okay, let's do
I
it.
have it laid out.
Let's do it right now.
I'll take,
No, I'm
I know
done.
what Scott wants. I'll take lead on these roads and I'll start getting some things going to get you two together.
No, we'll get together. Scott. All right. That's it.
4 a.m, Grandma. Shut her down.
That's it?
So,
Well,
We're gonna-
if you plan to get together, I'll have to
Yep.
post and publish.
Okay.
So,
well, for what Scott's talking, we don't have to do it till February.
I disagree.
Jan-
I think you should do it right away. I can send you what I have,
I agree.
or I can ask you
You
for
should
the
do it right
information to fill out.
Scott, did you receive a copy of the capital improvement plan that,
That,
yeah, in spreadsheet format?
I don't know. I'll have to double check. Did you send that to everybody?
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Okay.
So that plan do we have Pioneer on there getting blacktopped out? I mean, all that stuff that we walked around, we did the tour, so like, I don't think we have a full,
Have you even looked at it?
yeah.
I don't know what, Scott, you got me lost. I don't know what you're looking for.
I do.
I don't.
It's
A plan.
just
Can you budget around it?
with dates.
It's got dates, it's got amounts, it's got footages.
I get it. And you can review those dates and we'll take a look.
Give me a month. I'll help.
I don't know what different we would come up with than what they gave us unless we just didn't do something.
Let's,
I don't know. They got the footages on it, they got the costs, they got the recommendations, they got the dates. What more are we
Okay, do
looking?
what you want. We're just going in circles. I got it going.
All right,
See
see
you
you
guys
later,
next meeting.
Scott. I'll make a motion to,
Well, wait a minute, so we're gonna have her submit a request to the county for the seal coat 99th and the paved part of Pioneer?
no, Dan was going to talk to Melissa.
But we were gonna get both, he's gonna talk to Melissa
Yeah.
and we were gonna do the county. As a
Okay.
county guy, we gotta do before our next,
I think you were just gonna clarify if we're locking into pricing or if it's just to get on a
Yeah.
list for pricing. And then I think
Right.
we'd wanna include on what month they would expect to do the
Right.
work,
Right,
so we would know.
but I think
Right.
we gotta tell them if we want in on it, to get a price.
That's what we need to know. So we need
Yeah.
to know what month, yeah.
But she might have to make a decision on that before our January meeting. We might have to start meeting twice a month.
You're funny.
No.
We'd have a less, smaller crowd. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.